Well, g'day and welcome to the channel. Do you want to improve your photos whilst having a lot of fun? If yes, I'm going to set you a challenge. If you accept this challenge, I truly believe you're going to grow as a photographer and your images are going to improve. So what is this challenge? Well, it's pretty simple. I want you to break all the rules. I want you to think outside the box. I want you to get creative. I want you to capture images that are truly unique. I want you to let go of the constraints of perfection, the ability to try and fail. By doing this, I truly believe you will grow as a photographer. So what do these images look like? Well, I'm going to share a number of images that I took and my beautiful members took that embrace this unique and creative aspect. I'm also going to tell you how you go about capturing these images in the field so you can have a go yourself. First, let's have a look at a few images my beautiful members captured. They have definitely embraced their own creativity, and all of these images are extremely unique. Focus on the elements that you like in these images. So this first shot was taken by Dan Betty on the northeast coast of the US. I'm instantly transported to this beautiful location with the mist on the water. It gives me a sense of peace, and just seeing that little herring gull gliding through the middle of the scene just adds that little bit of story and context. They just come together to make an image that is truly beautiful. Well done, Dan. The next image just blew me away when I saw it and is by Michael Che. This Osprey image, there's just something special about it for me. We can't help but admire the beauty and the serenity of the scene. The magnificent large bird just gliding down the beach with the most stunning setting sun casting beautiful color in the background. So the next image almost shocked me and took my breath away because I've never seen anything like this. It was captured by member Rhett of two wild turkeys fighting for mating rights, and I was just immediately struck by the uniqueness of this shot. I've definitely never seen this behavior before. Up next is this fantastic portrait by Colin Cox of a great blue heron. There are a number of elements I like in this, but I think it's the pose, the angle, and of course that beautiful light with the dark background that makes this image stand out. And the last image, taken by member Mark, is just so unique and different. You have to stop and wonder what is exactly going on here. Mark tells me that the hummingbirds were actually drinking from a sprinkler, and he was able to freeze the action at the exact moment the birds were piercing the water with its long bill. I also love the dark background on this. It just makes the bird pop. It's so unique, so different, and extremely engaging. So what did you feel when you saw these images? What stood out? What did they have in common? For me, they were all extremely engaging, they were different, and they were extremely unique. All these images ooze atmosphere. They all hold our gaze for more than a second, and that's hard to do in today's online environment. These photographers have thought outside the box, been creative, and captured these unique images, which is the challenge that I'm setting for you. So what I find really interesting about these images is many of them actually break the rules that I've been following for years as a wildlife photographer. What are those rules? Well, the first one is to have the light coming over your shoulder, pointing at the bird with no shadows, just glorious light directly on the subject. The second thing is to have the subject isolated, up close, big in the frame, full of detail, with the perfect side pose, the perfect eye contact. So by following these rules, you end up taking a certain style of photo, and I'll share a few of them with you now. First one is of this beautiful scarlet robin. As you can see, we've got beautiful light, great pose, great eye contact, fantastic detail, and the bird really pops, and I'm happy with that image. The next image is of a fantastic sacred kingfisher, a stunning bird with beautiful colors, lovely background, and it showcases the species perfectly. And the last one, this beautiful mulga parrot, just look at those amazing colors. The bird absolutely pops, and this follows all the rules that I'd set out before. So you probably picked up there, by following these rules, the images all start to look the same. We often refer to these as birds on a stick. I like to call them field guide shots, because that's what they are. They're basically putting all the focus on the bird itself, looking at the amazing detail, and I like this style of shot and have many of them. So one of the downsides to these field guide shots is they lack habitat and story. That's something unique and different. One way to make them a little bit more interesting is introduce a few elements into the image, like a native plant, for example. This New Holland honeyeater is on a flowering bottle brush. We've still got the direct light, the nice pose, the eye contact, but we've got a little bit more context and depth with that plant. Definitely improves the photo. My criticism of that shot is it's just not unique enough. There's nothing different about it. It's pretty and it's a nice field guide shot, but it's not unique. And here's another shot showing a little bit more habitat as this black-faced wood swallow. I actually like this image as the light's very nice. We've got that habitat in the background with extra layers, giving us some depth without being distracting. But again, it's missing that unique element. Now, occasionally you do get something very interesting, even with these portrait style shots. And sort of the pinnacle of this style would be a shot like this red cap robin that I captured. The bird's on a beautiful native plant. It's got its wings out, the detail's fantastic. Overall, it's just a very nice portrait. However, you might not be aware that many photos similar to this have actually been captured by luring the bird in, either using water, food, or calls. And I'll put my hand up, I brought that bird down by using some mealworms. I just want to be clear that I'm not criticizing this style. I've taken plenty of them myself, and it's just a certain style. If you like that, happy days. However, it can be very difficult to capture something creative and unique by using setups. So what made me branch out from my portrait style photography was I actually got the opportunity to work on a book with my dear friend Matt, who's no longer with us. I actually got to review his images, and it reminded me just how creative and unique his images were. I remember at the time we'd go out into the field in the exact same location, we'd take photos, and then we'd catch up for coffee afterwards. We'd be reviewing photos, and he'd have photos that I didn't take, and I was thinking, I never saw that. I didn't see these images, yet he had. For example, here's a double-banded plover that he captured backlit. It's just absolutely exquisite and beautiful. I was too busy getting into a position with the sun coming over my shoulder and capturing a completely different photo. So here's another example where Matt's actually shot a wider shot and some beautiful morning side light of a flock of red-necked avocets. We can't help but stare at the birds going about their business in stunning light. And possibly my favorite shot that Matt ever took was of these Australian pelicans. I could only dream of capturing a composition as strong as this. Just take a minute to appreciate how unique, different, and just utterly beautiful this shot is. Just incredible. No matter the style, he had the ability to capture unique behavior and action that just told a story. This albatross, for example, with its feet placement in the air and the eye contact just makes this image stand out. I'll be honest that I was often in absolute awe of the images he would take and a little bit frustrated that I couldn't emulate that. I tried a few times, but I just struggled and failed. And like many of us, if we struggle and fail, we just go back to what we know. So I just went back to the portrait style of photography. In hindsight, I just hadn't put in the time. Matt had spent years and years as an ecologist. He'd had his camera for years. He knew what he was doing and he had the skills. He had put in the time. So if we want to get good at anything, we simply have to put in the time. Now, I honestly believe this is the essence of photography. It's those intangibles. It's that intrinsic knowledge and skill that you pick up from hours and hours in the field. You can't learn that in a YouTube video like this. It just comes with time and effort, and we really have to get out into the field and practice our craft so that we can take shots as good as Matt's. Over the years, I did take a few creative shots just by chance. It wasn't a mindset, it wasn't a focus to do it. It just happened to be in the right place at the right time. And now if I reflect on the shots that I've taken in the past, I actually really like them and wonder why I didn't spend more time doing it. For example, I got the opportunity to go to the Southern Ocean to photograph penguins and albatross. And on the back of this moving boat on the Southern Ocean, the sun was coming down, the birds were flying through the sky, the albatross. And I thought, I'll just take some shots of these backlit birds. So all I did was just take photos of these birds, not really thinking much of it. The first image you can see here of the albatross just gliding over the water with the nice color in the background, the dark blue ocean. Just get a sense of this bird and its environment. Just fantastic. The next image is a pair of Campbell's albatross. I really like how these two birds mirror each other as they're flying through the sky. The background's interesting, just adds interest to the shot. And the last one is this big royal albatross. You get a sense for just how big the bird is. We've got the sun setting in the background. It just oozes story. And these are the types of images that really get my juices flowing, so to speak. Just awesome. And here's another shot. I actually took this 8 years ago and only just got around to processing it because at the time I didn't really think of it. I was photographing a bird. I've looked over my shoulder and there's a jabberoo with the sun coming up. I've turned around. I've taken a few shots, not thinking too much of it, thinking, well, I'm shooting into the sun, so it's not going to be all that good. Carried on. And now look at it. I like it. I love that we've got a bit of story here. We've got the sun coming up. We've got some bugs. We've got the bird just walking through the water. Beautiful color. Why didn't I take more shots like this? It's just funny, isn't it, how we change as we get more and more experience. Ultimately, the reason I wasn't capturing shots like this was my mindset. I was so focused on those rules I'd set myself that those were the styles of shots that I was taking. I was taking shots like this gang cockatoo, this beautiful portrait, and it's a very nice shot. I love it. However, because I'd restricted myself, I wasn't open to these other opportunities and trying different things. And I think that was a mistake on my part. It's just ironic that the times I did break my rules have resulted in some of my favorite photographs. Like usually when I photograph ducks, I always have this beautiful light hitting the water and the bird looks fantastic. But this one chance I had, the light was changing. I had a freckled duck. The light was hitting the duck, but the background was dark. It resulted in this shot, which is just unique. It's just different. It looks nothing like other shots of freckled ducks that I've taken. And I really do like this photo. And often I was reluctant to take small birds in the frame. However, I was on a boat. I happened to notice a kelp gull on the ledge on some granite wall rock. And I just thought, oh, I'll take some shots. It's kind of interesting. And now I think this is really cool. I love how this little bird is surrounded by the habitat, and it just seems to work for me. There's something really interesting about it. And another opportunity I had to be creative was when I got to witness the migration of some share-tailed shearwaters. They come from Alaska all the way down to the Southern Ocean around Tasmania, and there was thousands of birds. It was just incredible. And I managed to try and capture these birds with the rocks in the background and capturing just the motion of what's going on. It's just unique, it's different, and something I'll possibly never witness again. So as mentioned, after looking at Matt's images, I decided to change my mindset. I decided to give myself the flexibility and the freedom to break my own rules, to look outside the box and just be creative. It just happened to coincide with this lens that I have before me, this Canon RF 100-500. This lens has probably been the instigator or the reason why I've got so creative. Is the ability to have 100-500 in one lens is just amazing, because you can change your composition so quickly and so easily. For example, I was photographing this fuscus honeyeater feeding on a grass tree, and you can see this wide shot. We've got the bird feeding. We can see the base of the grass tree and the flower. The bird's small in the frame. And then we simply zoom in to 500mm and we capture an up-close image of the bird feeding. So the ability to have that freedom to just change a composition. I just love my zoom lenses now and wonder why I never had them in the past. I was just restricted to this big prime, which definitely narrows your flexibility down. I'm happy to report that I'm at a stage now where my instincts are finally kicking in for these creative shots. And when I was shooting with my mate with the Nikon Z9, we had a beachstone curlew, taking some shots, and then I saw the opportunity for something creative. That was to get a shot shooting into the sun. We had the sun coming up, we had beautiful color. Wasn't that close to this beachstone curlew, but it was just standing on the sand, beautiful color in the background. Took these shots, and this is probably my favorite shot of the session. I would never have taken that shot 5 years ago, because I would have thought I have to be on the other side of this bird to get the light. So I was very happy to capture that. And I'm sure many of you have been around since the beginning, have probably noticed this change in my photography. And when I picked up the Sony 200-600, I had a lot of fun with that. This image here is one of my favorite, of a cockatoo leaving a perch with the sun coming up, the inclusion of the habitat. Overall, I just absolutely love this image. And another recent shot that I actually took with my really old 40D, and one of my favorite images of the year was this early morning scene of all these herons flying around this tree with the beautiful color in the sky. An image that really showcases what we're talking about with being unique and different. So I'm also trying to incorporate shadow and light, and you can see that with this sulfur-crested cockatoo with it flying over the reeds. The bird was in light, but the background was in shadow. This image is just one of my favorite of last year. And another image that brings a smile to my face was these backlit cormorants that we managed to pick up last year. I absolutely love this shot. So these images were all possible because of my changed mindset. By changing my mindset to this creative, unique style, I've actually started to really enjoy it, and it's incorporated into my photography. I still like portraits, but I also like creativity. So something else which is extremely important, which I haven't mentioned yet, is that animal behavior is intrinsically linked to creative, unique images. Ideally, we want to capture some sort of behavior. What do I mean by behavior? That is the bird doing something in its environment, whether it's catching prey, whether it's feeding, whether it's preening, just doing something basically. For example, remember Yurka captured the moment a jaybird captured a small tit. This image is particularly stunning as the bird is perfectly framed in its habitat, which gives the image depth. Another example of wonderful behavior is this stunning shot by Mark of a pair of white-tailed kites fighting over a small mouse. This behavior is incredible. And remember, John Clark managed to capture this exact moment. A pair of little egrets were fighting mid-air. This behavior is just fantastic and unique. And finally, a shot which manages to blend creativity with behavior from member Miguel. This wonderful backlit shot of an osprey with its catch. I love this shot. The silhouette is just stunning, and I can't help but stare at the image and wish I'd taken it. All these images highlight how blending creativity with behavior are going to take your images to the next level. If you like to enter photo competitions, it's these types of images that judges simply can't ignore. It's highly unlikely they're going to pick a bird on a stick. What they will stop and look at is images that are unique and creative. So if you want to enter competitions, these are the styles of images I highly suggest you enter. So now that we know the types of images we want to capture, how do we actually capture them? And this is the difficult part. However, there's a few key tips I can give you which will help you. The first one, take advantage of the weather. You take advantage of the rain, the snow, the wind, early morning light, late light. By photographing in these changeable weather conditions can create something unique. For example, in my most recent video, I went out and photographed some red-kneed dotterels. I got there before the sun came up and I purposely shot into the sun. And by shooting into the sun, you end up with images like this. And I took loads of them in that video you're free to check out. So another member who took advantage of this was member Gary. He'd been wanting to capture the unique sugarbird from South Africa. It's got this enormous tail, but usually it just sits behind the perch and you can't really see it. But Gary wanted to capture that tail, so he took advantage of the wind. He waited till there was a lot of wind and he thought the wind is likely to blow the tail. So he's got himself set up. The wind is blowing a big gust. The bird's tail fans out and he's taken this incredible shot. It's only through that planning and the thought and the idea of using the wind has enabled him to capture this shot. He's thought outside the box and he nailed it. And another member who took advantage of this was member David when it was snowing. Full credit for him to getting out in the snow, and he managed to capture this shot of a black duck as the snow was falling down. I love this, mainly because we don't really get a lot of snow down here in Australia, so I don't really see these sorts of images, but for me, it just struck me immediately when I saw it. Absolutely love it. Another member who took advantage of the environment was member Amber. She took advantage of an outbreak of bugs when she captured this yellow-rumped warbler, I assume hawking for insects. The inclusion of the bugs just takes this image to the next level and is something you probably haven't seen before. The second tip, and I can't emphasize this enough, is just the time spent in the field. The more time you spend, the luckier you're going to get to experience something unique that you've not seen before. Member Thomas stated he does not get that many species in his area, but he was having fun just photographing the common mute swans when he spotted a white-tailed eagle just flying low through all the swans, and he captured that exact moment and he was absolutely stoked to capture it, and he definitely wouldn't have captured this by sitting on his couch. So well done. So another key is bird behavior. Understanding bird behavior and listening for it often helps. So remember Andrew had his camera, he was going through a walk through a park, heard a cockatoo making an absolute ruckus as they do. He's gone over and there was a male displaying on a perch with its crest up, which they only do when they're sort of displaying. It's got its wings out and he's managed to capture this very unique shot, a great shot of a cockatoo. We've got that inclusion of habitat behind it, gives us a sense of where it is. Overall, an image he should be very proud of. So by studying bird behavior, you pick up these cues and you listen for these things, and it just makes your job a lot easier. And the third thing, and something I highly suggest, is to shoot in a high frame rate. By shooting a high FPS, we're more likely to capture that one image that has that unique behavior that we're after. And remember Wilson did just that. Whilst photographing some spiny-cheeked honeyeaters at a watering hole, the birds got spooked by a predator and they took flight. But Wilson managed a few frames right before the bird on the perch took flight, but its mates had already left, creating this very dynamic and unique shot. I hope these images have given you the motivation to get out and be creative yourself, to try to capture these unique and beautiful images. I think what's important to note is the true joy of photography is deeply personal. We should be pursuing the style that makes us happy and brings us the most joy. That might be portraits, it might be being creative. You need to figure out what's right for you. I'm not going to tell you, and there's not one that's right or wrong. From my personal experience, chasing perfection and Instagram glory only ended in disappointment and frustration for me. And it wasn't until I sort of let go of that expectation and just enjoyed the process that I did start to enjoy myself more. Of course, I want to capture nice images, but my experience isn't dependent on that outcome. For me, I know now that I'm going to get good images, and when I do, I'm going to enjoy that experience. But I'm also going to enjoy it when I don't get those images. And I highly encourage you to try to adopt that mindset also. I just want to thank all the beautiful members that submitted images for this video. I apologize I wasn't able to share them all. If you want your images featured in some of my future videos, please consider becoming a member. For the price of less than a cup of coffee per month, you can hit that join button. Supports me to create videos like this, get out in the field and do what I love. You also get access to the 2023 digital calendar for your laptop, tablet or PC. High quality 4K images, you get a cool little emoji next to your name, and you can be part of our wonderful community. So I'd love to hear from you in the comments what your thoughts were on this video. How's the challenge working for you? Do you like these creative, unique style shots? What's helped you? Get a conversation going. We've got the best community on YouTube. I'm a little bit biased, but I believe we do. And good luck on your next adventure. Enjoy yourself. Happy birding. Take care, and we'll see you later.